And I think we just talked about debit card. Is that right? We talked about 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Cash, check, and debit card.
We were on the credit card when we left off.
All right. So can someone tell me, like, just a high-level overview of what's the difference between a debit card and a credit card?
A debit card transfers money directly from your bank account to said bank account. Credit card is a limited amount of money you pay back within a month.
Exactly. So
It's
debit
amount
card
versus,
is,
so storage versus loan.
pardon?
Stored money versus borrowed money.
Yes, exactly. Debit card is your own money. Credit card is borrowed money. So a credit card is a plastic card. It looks just like a debit card. So it's a plastic card that allows the owner to transfer money from a lender to a bank account. So from a lender to a bank account.
Hence term credit.
And when you're using a credit card, you're using borrowed money. So uses borrowed money. Yeah, you can write right on it.
I was trying to write on it like that.
I know, I thought it would fit together like that, and it doesn't, unfortunately. I know. All right, and then EFT, what does EFT stand for?
Electronic funds transfer.
There you go. Electronic funds transfer. And this is when funds are transferred from one bank account to another electronically. So when funds are transferred from one bank account to another electronically. So that's going to be like direct deposit. That's going to be like wire transfers that you do at a bank. Or it's going to be like PayPal or Venmo or Cash App. Those kinds of things. Electronic funds transfer. And once we're finished copying that down, we're going to move on to the good and bad of each method of payment. So it should look like this on the outside, and then this on the inside is what we're going to get to next. So the good and bad of each, pros and cons of each type of method of payment. Yeah. So, good things about cash. Can you think of any?
You can pay directly on your phone.
Yeah. I guess the same is true for like a debit card or a check, right? It's only really you being affected. But I think the point is that it's easy. It's easy to use. It's really straightforward. Easy to use. And most stores do take cash. Although, it seems like less and less do. Most stores take cash. And there's no interest or fees. What can be a problem? It can be a negative.
You can lose cash easily.
You can lose it. It's in your pocket, so or it could get stolen. Yep, exactly. So it's hard and it can be unsafe to carry large amounts of cash, right? So hard.
Hence why the $100,000 bill was only used as a bill for transfer between banks. It was never meant for public use.
Right.
It was only used
It's
from
way too
1934
easy to
to
just
1934.
drop that bill, right?
Yeah.
And you can't call someone up and be like, hey, $10,000 just got stolen out of my pocket and expect them to give it back to you, right? That doesn't happen. But if it was in a bank account and you knew there was $10,000 in a bank account and then you woke up the next morning and it was gone,
Then again, it was
you could call your bank and be like, why did my money just disappear? And there's a record of it. So that's what's helpful about having money in a bank versus having it cash. So it's hard.
And what's funny
And
is that the $100,000 bill was made in the early 30s. 32 to 34 when it was used. December.
During the Depression?
What?
During the Depression?
Yeah.
To carry
Highest value bill.
large amounts. And then as well, sometimes stores don't accept cash, right? They used to say cash is king. Cash used to be accepted everywhere. But now you can go places and they won't accept cash anymore. They only take a card. So some places don't accept it. All right. How about checks? What's good about checks? What's that?
Oh.
I thought you said something. Any ideas?
Good thing about check is they can get put immediately instead of being put in the cash and having to go somewhere else.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think what you're saying is like it's an easy transfer from bank to bank, right? You don't have to pull cash out, give it to someone else in cash, have them put it in. You can write a check and it goes directly from one bank to another. Yeah. And it comes out of your bank almost immediately. So when someone cashes a check, it comes out right away.
Also, don't they have it designated to where it's telling you what bank account you're transferring in, so someone can pick it up and use it?
Right. So on a check, and we'll talk about how to write a check, but on a check you write who it's to, and only that person who it's to could deposit that check. Yeah. So like I could write a check to Romeo and Talon wouldn't be able to cash it in his bank account, right? Only Romeo could.
Inserts commonly large.
I know. There was a really bad movie in the 90s called Blank Check, and it was this like millionaire guy, and he wrote a check for like $10,000 or something, and this kid found it, and then he cashed it, and then he like put a bunch of water slides in his house, and it was a really silly movie. Yeah, Buster.
Can I go see Miss Venus for a second?
That's fine.
Yeah,
Not
that
really.
reminds me of a million to one.
Hey, I need to give you a pass. Okay. So it's easy to write out. I think it's good for personal transactions, so person to person. Can you turn that music down? Because I can hear it from here. And you're going to blow your ears out.
I have military grade tinnitus.
And then it comes out of the bank quickly. The bad things about it are that some places just don't accept checks.
Well,
Well, so it can be kind of understandable because don't accept checks. So when you go and cash a check, it's immediately drawn out of your bank account. But if I just like wrote a check to Piper, you wouldn't know if that check would be honored right away until you went to the bank to deposit it. So a lot of stores don't want to accept checks because they can't tell if it's like valid money or not. Because I could write a check and not have the money in my bank account to support me, and then that store would be out however much money I owe them.
You reserve the right to call BS.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. Okay, debit cards. The good is they're really convenient. They're easy to use. They're accepted almost everywhere. And money comes out of your bank immediately. Again, the bad thing, some places don't accept them. Some places, only accept cash. And there's usually a daily limit put on debit cards, which can be really good when they're preventing fraud, right? But if you need to buy something and it's more than your daily limit, then you'd have to call your bank and have them undo the limit for just now, for just a day. Temporarily, thank you. Credit cards. Credit cards are nice because if you don't have money for something, you can borrow it. But I said that with a disclaimer. If you don't have money, yeah, money, you can borrow it. Yeah, and I'll put an asterisk next to that. And then you can also, it's a way to gain credit. So you can gain credit.
There's a rule of thumb with those, don't use it because you can pay it back right then.
Exactly. Obviously, sometimes emergencies come up, and credit cards can help you pay for something if your car breaks down and you don't have money in savings, or you have to go to the hospital and you don't have money in savings, or those are emergencies. But those should always try to be avoided by having an emergency savings fund, so you don't have to rely on a credit card, right? And there's no such thing as a fashion emergency that requires you to use a credit card. That was also from a bad movie in the 90s. But gaining credit is something that is going to be helpful in the long run, as long as it's done responsibly. So gaining credit and having a good credit score allows you to have better interest rates for a house or for a car. Having a bad credit score you'll have to pay higher interest rates on any loans that you take out, if you're allowed to even take out a loan, because you might not even be allowed to. So the bad thing about credit cards are, there's my disclaimer, if you don't pay it back, don't pay it off, there are high fees and interest. So this is where your math classes show up in your real life. Does anyone remember what kind of curve that's called?
Exponential.
Exponential, right. So an exponential curve models credit card debt. So you could take out, if you wanted to like go to Walmart and spend $1,000, you could go and spend that. I mean, you could go and buy a phone or something there. I don't know. There's people who do it, definitely. If you wanted to spend $1,000 on a credit card and then you just go put your credit card in a drawer at home, you forget about it, you don't pay it off, it's going to gain 20 to 25% interest. So the next month you're going to owe $1,200 or $1,250. And then the following month you're going to gain interest on that $1,200. And then the following month you're going to gain more interest on it. So you can see how quickly it climbs, how fast that debt can grow with an interest rate. Exactly, which is why we don't spend outside of our means. And we'll talk about that more in a minute, but we don't want to be spending more than what we're making, because this is what happens.
Unless, of course, it's something you save for every for and you have the ability.
Exactly. So yeah, if you have the money to buy something, then that's fine. But when you don't have the money to buy something, just don't do it. Easier said than done. But all right, EFTs are good because they're really convenient, and they're great for payroll deposits or regular payments of any kind. And then the only bad thing really is some banks charge a fee to do this.
Yeah, like city market.
Pardon?
City market does.
Okay. Yeah, I think my bank charges a fee if I wanted to do a wire transfer. But like Venmo doesn't charge you a fee unless you want to deposit the money immediately, then I think it'll charge you. Or if you want to use a credit card with a Venmo account, it'll charge you a fee for that too. All right. Let's move on. We're going to go to budget. So all about budget. You should go to this page first. So all about budget. What is a budget? What is a budget?
Budget is a plan set by you on how much you can spend.
Yeah, exactly. A plan of how to spend. And what else can you do with your money besides spending it?
Save.
Yeah, save it. So a plan of how to spend and save your money. So in other words, telling your money where to go. And what's money coming in called?
Income.
Income. All right, then you can flip to the inside. Okay, we talked about this a little bit last week. So there's something we call gross income. Gross income is the amount of money that you earned. Gross income minus taxes and insurance, all the deductions, is called what?
Net.
Yeah, net income. Net income. And this net income is how much money you have to save and spend. So if you have more expenses than your income, it is called a deficit. And a deficit is bad. It has a sad face next to it because it means you're in the negative. You spent more money than you earned. And if you have more income than expenses, it is called a surplus. You okay? Do you want to get a drink? Surplus is good. That's what we want to have. We want our income to be more than our expenses. That's what we were talking about before. We always want to spend within our means, be spending less than what we're making. So income minus expenses equals one of two things. What did I just say? If you're in the negative, what is it? Deficit. And if you're in the positive, surplus. So income minus expenses either gives you your surplus or your deficit. So this is just a really simple mock monthly budget. If the income that someone makes is $1,500 per month, and then these are their expenses, we want to figure out what they're left with at the end of the month. So what are their expenses added up? What's their total expenses? Yeah, $1,350. So what's 1,500 minus 1,350? 150. So they ended up with $150 surplus at the end of the month, which is a good thing. Yeah. Well, it depends on the car you drive and where you're driving to. I ride my bike. My gas is free.
Diesel's $4 down.
Yeah.
California normal.
All right. So what we're going to do